Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Victober video. And I am joined by my husband David to discuss a book with you. And I'd just like to know first, what are you reading for Victober?
I'm sorry, am I reading something from Victober?
I was just wondering what you were going to say.
Okay. I'm trying to remember if you had,
No.
like,
Well,
maybe promised to read something.
I do have both Aurora Floyd and Grania kind of sitting on his nightstand in the hopes that he'll feel totally inspired all of a sudden to pick them up. But the book we are going to talk about today is to do with weightlifting. I thought that is the hook that I could get you at. Sorry, is it weightlifting or bodybuilding? Because those are two different sports, right?
It's lifting weights, so it's neither of them, actually.
Lifting weights. So David is a weightlifting enthusiast.
Sure.
What would you say?
I enjoy lifting weights. Weightlifting is a sport, a specific sport.
Like
That's
Arnold,
what they do.
What Arnold
No,
Schwarzenegger. Okay.
Weightlifting is what they do in the Olympics.
Okay.
And it consists of two movements primarily. It's the clean and jerk and the snatch.
Okay. Yes, which we saw they did a lot in Weightlifting Theory, the Korean drama that we watched together.
Yeah, that's weightlifting.
Okay, that is weightlifting.
Right, and then bodybuilding is another sport aesthetics. That's specifically for aesthetics.
Okay.
And then there's powerlifting.
Okay.
Which I was interested in for a while.
Okay.
And then there's strongman, which is a great sport to follow.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
But it takes a toll on your body.
Right, but what I do is lifting weights.
Okay.
Which is just, for health and things like that.
Yes, and Eugene Sandow also lifted weights.
And he was the father of bodybuilding.
So that is, yes. You heard about him in a documentary?
He's just, can I grab another book?
Yeah, sure.
Real quick.
All right, so what is the other book?
This book, Starting Strength by Mark Ripito, is a really good guide for beginning. If you're just interested to lift weights to become stronger, because strength is extremely useful in your life. In fact, actually, as Mark Ripito observes, physical strength is the most important thing in life.
Wow.
So that's quite the claim. And he unpacks it. What he means by that is if you... basically, he says all the philosophy and higher thought in the world is basically worthless for your life if you can't even, get up and take care of yourself, do the basic things. So when someone talks about strength, you might think I don't really need to be able to lift 100 pounds over my head. Why would I ever need to do that? But when you think about strength is also the thing that allows you to get off the ground if you fall down.
Yes.
And if you can't do that, then your quality of life is going to really, really suffer. So, as a qualified statement, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I heard about Eugene Sandow because this guy and others who are in kind of the fitness industry, by and large, they got their start with Eugene Sandow.
And it was interesting to me because I read a few years ago a book called This Victorian Life about a couple that bought a 19th century mansion in, I think it's Washington State, and they have only Victorian technology in there. And his morning routine was a lifting weights routine created by Eugene Sandow. So that's how I heard about him. And this picture is very iconic. And so kind of going into this, what were you hoping this book would be?
Well, I was hoping to get from it a lot of what I did get, which is sort of the philosophy of lifting weights and bodybuilding and, sort of a health perspective coming from the Victorian era. And yes. I definitely got that. I was also hoping that it would have personality, and the book certainly does that. The third thing I was hoping for was to actually get a sense of what was kind of the cutting edge philosophy or viewpoint or approach to actually getting strong. The book is called
Strength and How to Obtain It.
Yes, so I was hoping to learn how to get strong from this book. And that was the last bit is I didn't really get from the book.
Right.
Is how to obtain it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll tilt it forward because it's glaring.
So,
so then, what is the part that you did appreciate? What is his argument for why should you be strong? Especially if you're I don't need to lift 100 pounds over myself. Why does he think
Well,
you should
he
be
makes a
strong?
really good case for the connection between strength and health and physical well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So he's drawing that straight line between being uh, strong and just being functional.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, it's interesting, he makes a strong case, or he at least alludes to the concept of civilization related health maladies, which
Mm.
is that
We're
the,
over civilized.
yeah, we're over civilized, and the modern sedentary lifestyle, the convenience, the labor saving devices, the conveniences and things like that, which were already showing up in the Victorian era,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Many of them, but we're miles behind ahead of where they were in that regard.
Yeah.
And so, if it is true that all the labor saving devices and things like that we love and take advantage of uh, relate to maladies of civilization, then you
Yes.
have to think that it's not surprising that today, uh, you know, all kinds of back pain and things
Yeah.
like
Chronic
that,
chronic
chronic,
back
mm-hmm,
pain. That's
mm-hmm.
a big one.
There's more of that type of thing than ever. And so he believed that if people were to, kind of re-obtain the sort of strength that they would have had in a more primitive era,
Mm-hmm.
then we would be better off. So that's quite the claim, and
Mm-hmm.
and you can probably take it too far, but there's definitely some truth there.
Yes. And I'll say, speaking from my own personal experience, it's very ironic that I didn't start lifting weights until I became chronically ill. And David spent a good, I'd say, like year and a half, just kind of like being like, I'll just be over here until you admit that you want to weight lift. And he would kind of suggest sometimes, maybe you should think about this. And it seemed so counterintuitive to me. Wait, why would I do that? I'm really tired all the time. But ironically, the exercises that are suggested for my chronic illness tired me out more because they took longer.
Right. So with your chronic illness, the cardiologist that we
Mm-hmm.
spoke to specifically recommended you to spend long periods of time on an exercise
Like
bike,
20 to 30
yeah, just
minutes.
cardio, and she was getting completely wiped out from it.
Yeah, it was
And
making me worse.
right, and so what I argued was, and because what I've seen both online and in personal life is that people who go from almost no physical activity,
Mm-hmm.
and then they add to that some basic level of weightlifting routine. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be extreme, but some sort of weightlifting routine where you're employing the concept of progressive overload, which is where
Mm-hmm.
you start doing some basic weightlifting, and then you add just a little bit of weight when you're
Mm-hmm.
ready. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to push the envelope. That's getting stronger. So
Yes.
if there's a weight,
And you make sure you have proper form because you get
yep,
hurt
yep.
if you don't.
But basically, bottom line is if you're lifting weights and you're lifting 10 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
1 week,
Yeah.
with good form for
Yep.
for a set of 5 repetitions, and then a
Mm-hmm.
month later you're lifting 15 pounds,
Yeah.
you got stronger.
Yes.
And that strength, you might think like that. Well, it's inconsequential, but you do notice it. It
Yes.
carries over into your lifestyle, and especially if you're sort of on the borderline between healthy and not healthy,
Mm-hmm.
or functional and not functional. It can be enough to actually push you over the line.
And I could never understand this before until I actually experienced it. That even on fatigue days, I can feel really tired and worn down, but still strong.
Right.
Like my muscles
Yes.
are more substantial, and it has been just so nice to have this kind of. I feel really negative a lot of the time. I have a negative relationship with my body. It's really disappointed me. It's let me down, and it's unpredictable how I'm going to feel day to day. But weightlifting is this positive relationship I can have with my body where it's, my body really understands 2 times a week I'm going to weight lift, and I don't really generally feel tired in that time as I'm lifting weights.
And do you think that in order to get some benefits from, so as Eugene Sandow would call it, to get some benefits from physical culture, do
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you have had to spend, like a lot of time in the gym each session?
No, but I did. It was a hard transition. I felt like crying every time I was lifting weights at first. It was really hard because I was really weak. I sit down a lot. So it was hard to get into that mindset, but I'd say maybe 4 or 5 months into it, I really started to love it. But I was able to keep at it because, like you said, it was only like 20-minute sessions
Right.
that I would do. And it wasn't lifting 20 minutes, it was lifting for 3 minutes, taking a break, getting ready for the next set.
Right. So Eugene Sandow, again, the father of bodybuilding, the father of the modern weightlifting, well, lifting weights enthusiasm culture, he also basically says you should start really small.
Mm-hmm.
And just starting is a big deal. And then you can build on it very, very gradually, especially if you're lifting for health, right? There's no
Yes.
need to kind of push it. And that is a mistake that people make when they're interested in improving their physical culture, improving their health, is they think, well, I mean, then I have to sort of go into the gym or, go for a run and I have to like sort of start at this high level. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The main thing is just to do something.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, in your opinion, it could be laughably small. It could be, I picked up, 2-pound weights and I pushed them over my head 5 times. I did that twice, and then I was done.
Yes.
And then the next session you do it again, and then you build a sense of consistency, and then you go from there.
Yes. And I will just read the introduction. I love. He has a very charming writing style.
Yeah, he does.
I haven't read the whole thing, but the snippets that I read, I liked his writing style, but I'm biased in favor of any Victorian writing. He says, in writing this book, I have taken it as a commonplace that every man, woman, and child wants to be strong. Without strength, and by strength I mean health, vitality, and a general sense of physical well-being, life is but a gloomy business. Wealth, talent, ambition, the love and affection of friends, the pleasure derived from doing good to those about one, all these things may afford some consolation for being deprived of life's chief blessing, but they can never make up for it. So he's very passionate about the quality of life that you can have with some strength in it. And okay, so now you did have, I was saying, like, what did you think about it? And you had some things that you were not as impressed by.
Well, so the book is called Strength and How to Obtain It, and he didn't actually have much to say about, in my opinion, how you actually obtain strength.
Mm-hmm.
There was, let's see, there was about, chapter 4 is 5 pages long.
How to exercise.
How to exercise, and it's very, very minimal, and he doesn't actually at any point sort of recommend like a template, like you should on Mondays do this, on Tuesdays you shouldn't. There are a couple good things that I want to pull from it, but then he has chapter 5 is a two-page chapter where he pitches his he's got some kind of product, right? So he's doing like a product placement. So it's kind of like, if like right now in this video we like stopped for a minute to like advertise our amazing My Grip dumbbell. You should buy this. That's and stuff.
Great.
So it's in a book, but there's like an advertisement partway through.
Well, and I wonder if there was like a little tearaway thing you could like mail in.
Oh my gosh, yeah, probably. Almost certainly. So he had that marketing angle in there, which was kind of interesting. And then the funny thing to me is that chapter 6 is the magic of the cold bath. So he recommends taking a cold bath. And in terms of specific instruction, there's more detailed instruction in how to take a cold bath than there is in actually how to like lift weights and get strong. So for instance, he says you should splash water, splash the cold water on your chest 5 and 20 times, and then after that you do, he's a very, very detailed instruction on how to take a cold bath, which I thought was funny. But there are a couple things that from the chapter on how to actually obtain strength that I thought were pretty interesting. If you don't mind, could I share them? So one thing that's interesting is that he says it's very advisable for all pupils to get into the habit of constantly practicing muscle contraction. And he says that the idea is to establish the connection between the brain and the muscles, which is the basis of strength and condition. Now, that's interesting because in bodybuilding today, they still talk about this concept of mind-muscle connection. And that's like sort of a fixture of bodybuilding philosophy. So as I said before, there were like different sports and different philosophies within people who lift weights, but that mind-muscle connection is still practiced today. And there's other things in there that I found when I was in my early 20s. I read a book called, I think it's called The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And a lot of the same beliefs and philosophies that were in that, I think, actually came from this book.
That's
So
interesting.
that's still being like taught and practiced today. And then the other thing is that the probably the greatest rule, and he says this, he says, the great rule that progress in the direction of the exertion of willpower should be gradual and ever continuing is one that many people confess they are unable to carry out. In other words, he has this idea of progression and this idea of progressive overload, which is to say, now he's speaking in particular about willpower. Like he had some kind of unique ideas that like maybe you didn't have to use more weight, but you could just exert more willpower. So
Oh.
that is a little bit of a departure from current philosophy. So
Mm-hmm.
so we talk about in modern weightlifting theory, there's the idea of progressive overload is sacred. The idea is that when you've kind of gotten to a point where you can handle 5 pounds, you move to 6 pounds or 7 pounds,
Yeah.
and then you work until you're able to handle that weight, and then you move just a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if you were able to do 5 repetitions of 5 pounds, then you move to doing 6 repetitions. This idea of
Yeah.
always progressing in the overload. So he has the idea of progressive overload, but it's in willpower. It's like this mind over matter thing. And so he says that, and elsewhere he says that in every movement you should give it your all.
Mm.
So he's picturing almost like, I think he's picturing people are doing movements with like 5 pound dumbbells, but they're very much focusing on it and with all their might. So, but that's my critique of the book. The other thing about it, and it's funny, is that probably half of the book is devoted to sort of self-aggrandizing stories about how he beat such and such strongman or he beat such and such strongman.
I Meet Goliath is one of the
Yeah,
names of the
there was a strong
chapters.
man called Goliath, and then he has uh, pictures of a lot of pictures of himself without clothing.
It
Actually,
is. I was kind of shocked.
like there's like bits where like he's like sort of he really is without clothing. Maybe he's like posing with like a leaf, a
Yes.
strategically placed leaf.
Yes.
So that's pretty like crazy.
You can look these things up for yourself if you are so inclined.
Yeah. If you want to check out Eugene Sandow, I mean, he had a great physique for sure. Um,
So,
yeah.
I should also say that he was German. Is that correct?
I think so.
He
I'm
was
sorry.
German, but he immigrated to the United Kingdom and became a British citizen, and he was very loved by the Victorian public.
Hmm.
So that's how I found out about him
He
because
was friends with Arthur Conan Doyle.
Was he really?
I forgot where I think I read that on Wikipedia.
Wow.
Among other people, like there were various people who sort of reached out to him. Would he have been a contemporary of Houdini?
Yeah, except Houdini was American, but Houdini traveled a lot. So,
Okay.
but Houdini and Conan Doyle did not like each other.
Oh, really?
Yes, because Conan Doyle's wife held seances, and Houdini saw kind of the real harm and hurt that could do, giving fake comfort to people who had lost loved ones in the war. So anyhow, I digress. Okay, so now you did mention something, and I was waiting for more details on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what was this like? Holding someone over a
Yeah,
wall
yeah.
or something?
So I mentioned his stories are sort of self-aggrandizing, and I think he's trying to impress upon his readership the value of physical culture and the health connection and things like that. But I think there was also a strong part of the pitch is probably the idea of, I remember that there was I don't know if it was SNL or something like that, but in the 70s or maybe it was later than that, there was this trope of, are you always getting sand kicked in your face? Like, are you like that kind of like that guy who's always getting pushed around? Well, you just need to do my bodybuilding program, and then.
They totally spoofed that in My Little Pony.
Oh, really?
With if someone tries to block, show him that you rock.
Yeah, that's
with
right.
Fluttershy.
So the idea of like if you're getting bullied, then maybe one approach is to
is physical violence.
Is to start lifting weights, and then physical violence. Then you become the real.
More like the threat of physical violence.
Yeah, you become the tough guy. So,
I see.
So I think there's some of that going on. So at least one of his stories is kind of about how like somebody tried to push him around or disrespect him, but he was so strong. It was like they were just like, oh no, I didn't know what to do. So he's visiting New York City, right, in his story. and he gets help from an elevator guy. They go up to like the
The
16th
bellhop.
floor, the bellhop, and he's very impressed. But he's sort of overawed by this whole experience. He goes to his hotel room, and the bellhop kind of like carries his bag in, and I think because he didn't get a tip, he just sort of hangs around. He sits down on the couch. He rolls himself a cigarette, and he just like smokes it, and he's just like very impertinent. And Eugene Sandow is like, he's like tries to be polite at first, and then the guy just like, keeps on showing him disrespect. So he grabs him and he dangles him over the balcony, the stairway of the balcony, like 16 stories. And then he's like screaming and yelling and stuff like that. And then the hotel manager runs up and he explains the situation. And the hotel manager was like, "I think you really showed him a lesson." like that was like the moral of the story.
That's what we gained from
it's
that.
like if someone disrespects you, if you're strong enough, you should just like dangle them over the balcony.
That's intense.
Because you're strong and
Wow.
So yeah, that's not really.
That's not gentlemanly behavior.
No, but it was a different era. I mean, I think that story probably would have landed a little bit better.
Yeah.
For like a Victorian audience.
I don't think he would have told it if he thought it would be kind of tone deaf.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, you think that maybe it's not the best place to start with if you're interested in lifting weights?
Definitely not. But
Okay.
I'm really thankful that he existed and he did the things that he did, and he sort of
Paved the way.
Paved the way for a lot of. I don't know if he was necessarily the first, but I see echoes of his thought in even in modern day practice.
Yeah.
About 125 years later.
Yes.
Physical culture, that concept. I think we should bring that term back actually, because it's more than just fitness or something like that. It's physical culture. It's saying, hey, let's be more like the Greeks. We should admire and celebrate the intellect.
Yes.
But it should be, a strong mind and a strong body.
Yes.
That should be the ideal. And the other thing is like you don't have the idea is you don't have to be an athlete. This isn't aimed. This message of physical culture isn't aimed at just like a small subset.
Yes.
It's aimed at everybody. Like wherever you are, you can take a little bit. You can come up a rung on the ladder, and find benefit in it.
And Teddy Roosevelt really embodied this as well.
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah, Teddy Roosevelt.
He was very well rounded.
I don't know if he would have read this. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt, maybe he did read it, but he had much the same philosophy. Like he had the idea. His father said something to the effect of, Teddy, you're
not doing so great.
You're not doing so great. You don't
He's
really have a good
sickly
body.
Child.
Yeah, and he said you're gonna have to make your own body.
Wow.
And he took that to heart, and he was just very into physical culture. He lifted, he exercised, and in his case, he was able to find significant health benefit, especially in his cardiovascular system and his lungs, that kind of thing. He much improved his lungs. He had very weak lungs, I believe.
Yes. So you are going to give me some links of, you think, videos that are good starting.
Yeah. I'll find a video or two. There's a lot of bad advice online. And a lot of people overcomplicate it, and I understand that not everyone is trying to make a research project of it, but everybody could benefit, in my opinion, from just a little bit more weightlifting, a little bit more physical culture. So I'll try to find a couple of good links, and we'll link them below.
Yes, and a little known fact that I have learned is, doesn't it reverse osteoporosis?
Yes, it certainly can. I'll see if I can find a link to a study along those lines.
Because that's, I think, particularly for women, in which osteoporosis is a lot more common. That's something that really motivates me too.
Yeah, overall, Mark Ripito, who I mentioned before, has a line that's quite in the circles, in certain circles, is oft repeated, which is that the body cannot be physiologically normal in the absence of hard work. So your body is made to do difficult things, and if your life itself is not difficult, if you're not having to carry water twice a day, which is sort of like what your body is made for, if you think about it. Like we're the descendants of thousands of generations of our ancestors who had pretty difficult lives. Like there were a few of them who lived in manors and palaces and stuff, but by and large, if you're a human being, your ancestors were more physical than you are.
Yeah.
And your body, it was designed, was built, was adapted for that.
Yes.
And so in the modern era, it's so simple. You just can't be physiologically normal in the absence of hard work. So what we do is we treat weightlifting, we treat the barbell, for instance, as medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's to correct that lack of having a hard life. Now, if you are carrying water twice a day, 2 miles from the well, this is not you. I'm not talking to you, okay?
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this video with me.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yes. And happy Victober, everyone. And yeah, check out, if you want an amusing read, Eugene Sandow. It is very short. It is 145 pages.
There are some, cultural sensitivities to it.
So kind of things that have not aged.
Yeah, not aged. So
well.
there's certain things that have not aged well about it.
That's good
so
to know.
be aware of that going into it. But yeah.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone.